What's up, and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, April 17th. Frank Stampfl joined by the gang. We're all back together, Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we're going to recap all of this weekend's action. We'll hit on the waiver wire ads, what is going on with Alek Manoah, and more prospects. Who doesn't love prospects? Make sure to like this video and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. And if you're listening on the audio side, download, follow, and leave a 5-star rating. Really appreciate it. And it really helps. So thank you. Let's start off, guys. I mean, the end of last week, we had like Edouard Julien, and seems like Taj Bradley might be getting called back up. And now we get even more over the weekend. Zach Neto was called up by the Angels on Saturday. And then we get news on Sunday that Brett Baty is likely to be called up by the New York Mets as well. Likely, seems like that will happen here on Monday. Eduardo Escobar is off to a brutal start. And we will begin there, Scott, with Brett Baty, who I know was very high in your prospects to stash on the site. And we saw him for a bit last year, and a former first-round pick back in 2019. Absolutely crushing it this year in the minors. 9 games at AAA, batting .400 with 5 homers, an OPS over 1,300, 66% rostered. Is Brett Baty just a must-add wherever he's available?
Yeah, pretty close. You know, anytime I bring up a prospect, I always get questions on Twitter. I say, oh, look, this guy's coming up. And it's like, oh, should I drop this guy for him? Should I drop that guy for him? And, you know, sometimes when you're actually lining up names, it gets a little hard to say. I would prefer Brett Baty over
Spencer Steer.
Yeah, I'd rather have him than Spencer Steer. I'm trying to think of some of the examples people were actually giving me. But yes, ultimately, I think Brett Baty is somebody you want to pick up. If you can at all manage it, regardless of what position you'd be dropping, I think there's a lot of offensive upside here. I think we saw it in the little bit he was up last year. He got 42 plate appearances, only struck out 19% of the time. Average exit velocity, 91 miles per hour. He hit a ball 113 miles per hour. He was putting up premium exit velocities even against left-handed pitchers. And you mentioned what he was doing at AAA, Frank. I saw a tweet over the weekend before news of him coming up that among average exit velocity leaders in the minors, and I don't think every venue is able to record that. So it's kind of spotty data we're using here, but Brett Baty among all minor leaguers had the top average exit velocity so far, and it was over 100 miles per hour average exit velocity.
Yeah, he had a 73% hard hit rate, and all but one of his batted balls had been over 90 miles per hour was the stat I saw. That was Mike Petriello, I think, that tweeted that one.
So like good plate discipline, just really impacts the ball as hard as you'd want a player to. And though he bats left-handed, he seems like he should be capable of handling left-handers. There is a question, particularly with the way the Mets have handled Francisco Alvarez, and Brett Baty has some defensive question marks himself. Like, are they kind of play games with that? Are they going to only start him against righties and have Eduardo Escobar interfere with the playing time? Ultimately, it comes down to how well Baty performs. Mm-hmm. But if there is any hesitation to pick up Baty in a shallower league, let's say, okay, so here's some examples. Somebody was asking Miguel Vargas or Brett Baty. Would I drop Miguel Vargas for Brett Baty? And I'd have a hard time doing that. Somebody asked, would I drop Jordan Walker for Brett Baty? No, I can't see.
Gunnar Henderson, would you drop him?
I wouldn't do that either. So like somebody asked Christian Walker. I think that would be hard to justify as well. So,
but Christian Walker, Jordan Walker, Gunnar Henderson, who was the other one you said?
Miguel Vargas, yes.
I mean, in our drafts, those were all top 150 picks. And, you know, outside of Vargas, the rest of those guys were all top 120 in ADP. So, like, that's not a knock on Brett Baty to say you wouldn't drop him, right. Drop those guys for him.
It's just when the rubber meets the road, the kinds of comparisons I was getting on Twitter. It always makes me a little hesitant to say, oh, Adam at all costs. Not at all costs. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you should try really hard to add Brett Baty.
Let's try and just figure out right now on the fly where we're going to move Brett Baty up to in our rankings. Because, Scott, I have yours open right now, and I think you can make the case he should be as high as like 14 or 15. I mean, that's keep Brian Hayes and Brendan Donovan in your rankings. So,
yep, I'd take him over those two.
Yep.
So then we get into like Alec Boehm and Eugenio Suarez and Matt Chapman. I don't think I would take Baty over any of those three, but it is really close.
I think that's the. So where does that put him in my rankings? 13th.
That would put him at 14.
14. I might take him over Suarez strictly in a points league because Suarez and all the strikeouts. But otherwise, yeah, I think we've found the right point in the rankings to put Baty. So that puts him outside the top 12 at third base. That's why, like, okay, maybe if you're talking like a 10-team league with standard head-to-head lineups, no extra corner infielder, maybe it would be a struggle to get him on your roster. But like, you may end up regretting it because there is serious upside here.
Chris, in terms of Fab, I had waivers run in my Tout Wars league at 8 p.m. on Sunday night, and this is a head-to-head points league with roto-style lineup, so it is a little bit deeper. You know, we go 5 outfielders, corner, middle, 2 catchers, and Brett Baty went for $154 out of $1,000 budget, so right around 15%.
That's way less than I expected. I was thinking he was going to be a guy who you'd have to drop at least 25% and potentially, 40 or 50%. In some leagues, obviously, if you really, really need him, especially in a 15-team league, that would be my expectation. He was rostered in all the leagues where Fab has run so far for me, which is only 2, TGFBI and Tout Wars. But that is surprising, even with the at 12, because like Zach Neto went for 361. We'll talk about him shortly in Tout Wars, and I got him for 212 in TGFBI, so I would have thought Baty would go for more than that.
Yep. So Baty wasn't available in any of my 15-team leagues, but I agree with you. If he was available there, he probably would go for up over 20%. 12-team points league, even with roto-style lineups, I think 15 to 18%, something like that, makes sense for Brett Baty. I was actually the backup bid at 43. I just didn't really need corner infielder. So I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe everyone just kind of forgot that he was available, and that's how that happened. Let's talk about Zach Neto, who was called up by the Angels. David Fletcher was optioned down to the minors, and Neto was last year's first round pick, 13th overall. So the Angels are being pretty aggressive in calling him up already. Only 44 games played in the minors for Neto. And we've seen this in the past with guys like Reed Detmers, Chase Silseth. The Angels draft guys that are near major league ready, and then they pushed him like rather quickly through the system. He hit 8th on Saturday in his debut, and then he was leadoff Sunday with Taylor Ward out of the lineup. Chris, we'll start with you this time. Zach Neto, he went hitless in both of his first 2 games, but what are your thoughts on what he'll provide for fantasy and the same kind of Fab conversation? How much are you trying to put down for him?
I mean, how do you project a guy who has 44 professional games under his belt, who went to a small school? He went to Campbell University. So it's not like we're talking about like this dude was dominating the SEC or anything. This was a situation where he went high, but there were still some questions about, the quality of competition he faced and how he'd fare going up a level. And then he did really well in the Cape Cod League and held his own, more than held his own last year in his professional debut. So it's really hard to know how to value this guy, because is this a situation where it's just like, yeah, he's a high floor guy who moved quickly because they think he can be a 2-win player right away? Or is this a case where they had no plans on calling him up in 2023 when they drafted him, and he's just so advanced and so skilled and took a bigger leap than expected that there's a superstar outcome here? I kind of think, even if the likelier outcome is it's just this is a team that needs to make the playoffs and they think he can help them do that, I think you kind of have to give him a chance to show that he can be a star, because with how aggressive they moved him up, with how productive he's been in the small sample size, it's within the realm of possibilities that, we're looking at a guy who could go 20-20 over the course of a full season. I think the likelier outcome is like, I don't know, like a Josh Rojas type player. Maybe a little more balanced on the power speed, but not someone who's like a must-start player by any means.
Yeah.
But given the way the Angels have handled him, I do think you have to at least account for the possibility that they just, really unearthed a gem here.
So he was a consensus top 100 guy, but it was like just reading the scouting reports for Zach Neto this preseason, it was kind of a surprise that he performed as well as he did. 13th overall pick last year, which, first rounder, but not an especially high first rounder. And the consensus seemed to be that though he doesn't have a lot of like raw power the way Brett Baty does, he maximizes what he has because he has like this big leg kick in his swing, and he tones it down with 2 strikes. So he's able to avoid striking out. And like Zach Neto just seems to be this really interesting sort of prospect who nobody knows how to evaluate that well, because he just kind of has manipulated his skill set in such a way that he gets maximum productivity out of it. And will that translate to the majors? Well, the Angels are optimistic that it will. I think what's most exciting about the Neto call-up, as opposed to like Edouard Julien last week, or some of the other prospects we've seen called up recently, Francisco Alvarez, is this was entirely merit-based.
Neto,
exactly. It's not like a shortstop went down and so they were forced to call Neto up to replace him. Like
he forced their hand.
Right. And he was batting leadoff his second game in the majors. So they seem pretty optimistic about him. I would rather have Baty if I'm investing dollars in one of them. But shortstop is a position that's become a glaring need in a lot of leagues. And Neto could be could be just what the doctor ordered as far as that goes, if it works out. I'd rather have Vaughn Grissom, who isn't shortstop eligible yet. Of course, we saw him called up at the end of last week, and he's been playing shortstop for the Braves. And I have more confidence in his ability to perform at the major league level.
Well, he's played more games at the major league level than Zach Neto has played as a professional.
There you go.
So that helps.
That does help. But if Grissom's already gone and shortstop is just a mess for you, I think Neto's definitely worth a shot.
And we're all in agreement. Oswald Peraza is way below the rest of the guys we're talking about, right?
Yeah, because he did get called up as with Giancarlo Stanton going on the IL, right? So he doesn't have a clear place to play. That's the biggest reason. That's the biggest separator between him and Neto for me. It's like Peraza's wasn't merit based. He's like he might just be.
He might be up for 4 days,
a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not based on, if we're just talking about like prospect pedigree and talent. I mean, I think, Peraza might even be ranked higher than Zach Neto, but I don't think he's going to be around for long. It sounds like Josh Donaldson will be back at some point this week. So seems like a short stay coming for Peraza. Zach Neto, in terms of FAB in the leagues where it's run so far for me, in 215 team leagues, 133 and 97 out of 1,000. So between around 10 to 13%. I got him in my Tout Wars league for $43. So 4%. I mean,
that's what I bid. Yeah. I didn't win him, but that I think is closer to a reasonable bid, depending on how badly you need a shortstop. If you're desperate, then you got to act desperate. But
yeah, I did get him in TGFBI, like I said, for 212. The backup bid there, the number 2 was 189. So, someone else wanted him.
Right.
Along with
So who
me.
did you have at shortstop that you went that high?
Who did I? Ezekiel Tovar and Luis Garcia. So not great.
Yeah. But like just from if like, would we all still take Tovar over Neto? I think I would.
I wouldn't drop Tovar for Neto, but given what we've seen from Tovar and how low he's batting in the lineup, especially, it wouldn't surprise me if Neto played I think the skill sets could be pretty similar, at least in a neutral context. Obviously, if Neto played at Coors Field, I might like him more.
Mm-hmm. Scott, you said that you would take Vaughn Grissom over Neto. Would you take Neto over Edouard Julien if you're just talking about a middle infielder?
I like Julian's skill set a lot more, but Joey Gallo's set to come off the IL like Wednesday, I think, midweek. Yeah. And I don't know what happens then. Trevor Larnach slowed down, so maybe they send him down instead of Julien. I mean, clearly the they've been batting Julian leadoff against right-handers, so it seems like they value him more, his bat more than Larnach. But I don't know. I'm kind of stuck in neutral with kind of frozen, not really knowing what to do with Edouard Julien right now.
Yeah.
I think it would come down to, do I need a shortstop specifically, or do I just need a middle infielder who can hit? And if it's the latter, I probably lean Julien slightly.
I tweeted out Saturday that I would rank it Grissom, Neto, and Edouard Julien. I agree with you that I like the offensive skill set, I think, more than for Julien than I do Neto. But the uncertainty about Jorge Polanco returning soon and just what are they going to do with Julien?
Yeah.
Just that slight sliver of doubt. I think I would probably lean with Zach Neto over Edouard Julien myself. Let's get into some of this weekend's action. Oh my goodness gracious. Players of the night.
The impossible has happened.
Yeah, so that was the New York Mets broadcast. That was when Bartolo Colon hit a home run. Give a shout out to the Mets. Brett Baty just got called up, so why not? Let's start with Scott. Oh my goodness gracious.
All right. So this seemed pretty impossible too, not so long ago, that we'd be talking about Johan Oviedo as a potential pickup in fantasy. He caught my attention late in spring training. I noticed how many whiffs he was getting once StatCast data became available for him, and his slider was up 3 miles per hour. And I mean, just from the context, okay, well, let me first get into Johan Oviedo did this weekend at St. Louis on Friday. 7 innings, 1 earned run allowed, 10 strikeouts in those 7 innings, 6 hits, 1 walk. Really good start. And that was after having a good outing in his previous start too against the White Sox. Now when Oviedo 6 2/3 shutout innings, 5 strikeouts in those 6 2/3 innings, but 18 whiffs on 89 pitches. He had 13 whiffs in that St. Louis start. So just from, okay, he's from the perspective of he's Johan Oviedo and why are we doing this? Okay, put that aside. If I just told you a guy has a fastball that regularly hits 99 and a slider that regularly hits 91, and he's not struggling to throw strikes, like that would be reason enough to be interested in him, right? Forgetting his name is Johan Oviedo. He's like a big guy who you wouldn't suspect would have obvious durability issues and has just looked really nasty. And I don't know what happened to his slider that caused it to gain so much life, but ultimately it's, it is what it is. He's throwing a slider 91 miles per hour. And he was the star of pitching ninja for the night with the way he was getting the kinds of swings he was getting from the St. Louis lineup against that slider. So I'm pretty excited about this. He also, Oviedo, is eligible at RP, if that matters to you in a points league, for instance. He does pitch for the Pirates. That's not so great, but the stuff looks exciting enough that I'm going to take a shot on him everywhere I can and hope it goes better than it did for Chris Bubic last Sunday. Mostly I'm hoping I don't talk him up so much here that I price him out of my own range, which happened with Bubic. I only got him in 2 leagues after being so excited about him last Sunday. But maybe it was all a con because now Bubic is hurt.
I mean, look, the Bubic thing, like,
suckers.
Let's address it. Because it's like, people were like, oh, Bubic was a bust. And it's like, he got hurt. Like, it wasn't even like, because originally we thought, oh, well, the weather was bad. Like, he was pitching with a forearm strain. So we don't know if that was a bad advice situation or not. I mean,
we don't.
I guess if you thought we could have predicted he would get hurt, maybe, but like, that's kind of silly. So like,
I do imagine he's going to wind up on waivers, right back on waivers in a lot of leagues,
absolutely.
because there's so many players hurt, and even if you have IL spots, do you really want to use it on Bubic?
I think it's fine to drop Bubic for Johan Oviedo. We have like a good start and a half from Chris Bubic, basically in his career, to go off. That's not the point. The point is that it wasn't necessarily bad process to add and be excited about Chris Bubic based on what he looked like. I will say Oviedo's not a high priority in my 12-team leagues. Based on, you said you're not sure what he did to his slider that he's throwing it so hard. I think it's probably that it's just more like a cutter now than a slider. He's traded
a lot of movement on that pitch.
Yeah, he's getting it, but he's throwing it harder, and he's sacrificed a little bit of movement as a result, which is fine. It's working for him. He's got a 36% whiff rate. He's got good results on balls in play. There's nothing wrong with it. I worry that he might just be a one-pitch pitcher. And if he can throw a slider / cutter 40% of the time and get good results with it, it might be enough. I'm skeptical, but hey, I'm a skeptical guy.
I don't know that we have enough data to say whether he's just a one-pitch pitcher or not, but I noticed that his curveball has performed really well.
Yeah, his curveball, has decent results as well. Yeah,
he's only thrown it 64 times, so I mean we're still kind of learning. But a .056 batting average against on it, nearly a 30% whiff rate on the curveball, and he throws hard with the fastball. So I mean,
fastball's got a. Okay, I mean, hitters
getting crushed, but he's getting whiffs with it. Yeah,
he has a 25% whiff rate on the four-seamer, which is a high whiff rate for a four-seamer.
Yeah. So Johan Oviedo, 31% rostered. Obviously, team context not great with the Pittsburgh Pirates, but 15 strikeouts, just one walk over his last 2 starts. The problem, if you pick him up this week, is that he's at Coors Field, so you probably do not want to start him the first time you pick him up. But if he goes out and performs well in Colorado, then he probably would go for even more money in FAB than he would go tonight. So if you're just thinking about picking him up, I think that's a good reason. I'll compare him to a few other waiver wire pitchers in just a little bit when we get to those names. Chris, oh my goodness gracious, for you from the weekend.
I'm struggling between a player who was good and a player who was bad. But since you're going to go with a player who was bad, and I assume we're going to talk about Sandy Alcantara in a little while, I will go with Jared Kelenic, who we talked a lot about at the end of last week when he had the 3-homer streak. But the one thing I pointed out, he hadn't really played against lefties, and he hadn't hit any lefties. And then he went out and extended his streak to 4 straight games with a homer on Friday with a home run off a left-handed pitcher. Now, it was Austin Gomber, so not the best left-handed pitcher in baseball, certainly, but still a home run off a lefty. And that was one of the knocks against Jared Kelenic. So he did the thing, and then hey, on Saturday, he didn't get a hit. Sunday, he drew a walk and stole a base. So I certainly think he remains a must-add player. I certainly think that skepticism is worthwhile when it comes to his apparent breakout, but he did one of the things that we wanted to see him do, and that was hit a home run off a lefty. So Jared Kelenic, way to go.
Just check to see if he's available in any leagues. He's up to 90% rostered.
Yep.
So, I mean, it would have to be the
shortest
of leagues.
It was 68% on Wednesday. So, yeah, he got scooped up pretty much everywhere.
So, maybe not today, but when do we start doing the sell high conversation for Jared Kelenic?
We did get an email saying now that Jared Kelnic's better than Juan Soto, but I don't think that's actually a thing anybody believes. Look, it all depends on how people are viewing him. If someone views him, like we mentioned Christian Walker as a guy that someone might want to drop for Brett Baty. If someone offered me a Christian Walker type, like a top 120 pick, top 100-ish player from the preseason, I would sell Jared Kelenic because that's truly selling high. But I think if you have Jared Kelenic as a top 150 player overall, and I know you guys aren't keeping top, overall player rankings anymore, but if that was the range you put him in, I think that'd be reasonable.
Ian Happ, a player who was probably drafted ahead of Kelenic and is off to a nice start himself. I think I'd be inclined. I mean, it would depend on how shallow the league is because Happ's only so valuable in a shallow league. His upside is only so high, and Kelnic's is who knows. So I think the shallower the league, the more likely I'd be to hold on to Kelenic in that scenario. And for most of the audience, I think that translates to hold on to Kelenic over an Ian Happ.
In a 15-team league, I would definitely rather have Happ. I think in a 12-team roto, I would rather have Happ, although it might depend on what we need because I do think, Kelnic's probably going to steal more bases. But I think that's a good comp, actually, for the kind of player Kelenic could end up being. You look at what Happ's done the past few seasons, and it's been You'd think more power, I think, would be the thing with Kelenic, but probably sacrificing more batting average. So that's probably a decent call.
Mm-hmm. And I honestly hate when people do this, but Scott, I will allow you at some point soon, if Kelenic continues to crush it, to do a victory lap here on the podcast and just slam dunk all those Twitter losers that were bashing you during spring training because, like, you were saying to take a chance on a former top prospect who is going outside the top 200 and might have upside. So,
you know, what's funny is I priced Kelenic out of my range too. I didn't draft him anywhere.
Yeah, he ended up the last week before the season started at NFC. He was like right around the top 200. I think it was like 195.
Yeah, I didn't wind up with him anywhere. I was not as bullish as you were, Scott. So, I mean, that's on me. We'll see if he can continue to keep it up. But, man, so far, so good with Jarred Kelenic. Let's take our first break here. And when we return, we'll get into a few pitchers that didn't look too good on Sunday right after this.
Get breaking news.
Big news coming out of the NFL today.
Highlights and instant reactions.
The largest final round comeback in tour championship history. We're down to the final four.
I just want to take time to analyze greatness.
Talk winners and losers with a guy who's already a big winner.
CBS Sports HQ. It's all sports all day long.
CBS Sports Golazo Network, the first of its kind, free 24/7 channel dedicated exclusively to global soccer coverage, is now streaming on the CBS Sports app, Pluto TV, and Paramount Plus. Get your morning started off on the right foot with Morning Footy, our weekday soccer culture-driven morning show beginning at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Plus, don't miss the rest of our top-notch programming, including live matches and re-airs, original studio shows, highlights, documentaries, and much more. CBS Sports Golazo Network is the ultimate year-round streaming destination for fans of the beautiful game. Chris, before we get into Alek Manoah, you brought up the name Sandy Alcantara. I actually don't have him on the rundown because I didn't think he was like bad enough to actually warrant talking about. But if you want to talk him up as a buy low, I have absolutely no problem with doing that.
Yeah, I mentioned him here just because I think it's probably the combination of how bad he was the previous start when he gave up 9 runs against the Phillies. Was it the Phillies?
Yeah, and then people pointed this out to me that apparently the Phillies have been really good against Sandy Alcantara throughout his career.
Yeah, but then he gave up 5 runs, I think 4 earned against the Diamondbacks today. There was a little bit of bad luck there. Brian De La Cruz got hit in the face by a line drive. It was one of the worst defensive plays you're likely to see by an outfielder all season. And then Sandy dropped a play at first base that wouldn't have gotten him out of the inning, but he would have been in line to get out of the inning before the Corbin Carroll home run. He's giving up a career high 89.1 mile per hour average exit velocity. So I don't want to just say that it's all bad luck. It's probably mostly bad luck. I think, Sandy Alcantara is really, really good. He's earned the benefit of the doubt. And I think Alek Manoah has earned the benefit of the doubt. Frankly, and I don't know if you guys agree, I don't know what to say about Alek Manoah right now. Like, I know the listeners and the people in the comments and on Twitter want us to have some explanation. Some like, this is why Alek Manoah is being, one of the worst pitchers in baseball right now. And really, it's just like, he's really pitching poorly, but I don't maybe he's hurt and he's trying to pitch through something and it's not showing up in the velocity for some reason, but he's, overcompensating, but he's just throwing a ton of walks right now is the biggest issue. And that's never really been an issue for him. So I don't know. Like, I wish I could tell you what was going on with Alek Manoah, but I don't really have a good answer.
So, yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, my answer is, he needs to stop walking so many hitters, which
pitch better.
Right. I mean, maybe that's not good enough reasoning because why is he walking?
Yeah.
Like you could go deeper and deeper into the whys if you want to. But like the point of me saying that is I don't see anything else that's especially wrong with him. I mean, even in today's start, he gave up 9 hits in 4 2/3 innings. Average exit velocity, 85.7, which is really good. That's what you want to see from any pitcher. His velocities seem fine. They were down in his previous
down a
start.
little bit.
They were back more or less in this start. I don't know why he's walking so many guys. 4 walks or more in like 3 straight starts, and that's Not something we've seen from him in the majors before. He's always been he's been a good control pitcher, especially last year.
The biggest change, I guess, is he's throwing his four-seam fastball less. It was 36% of the time last year. It's 28% of the time this year. That's not been a bad pitch for him. It's not like his sinker has been so much better that it's a change you would want to make, but maybe he's struggling to control the sinker relative to the four-seamer. And I don't know. It's not a compelling case, I think.
The little bit of explanation that the Blue Jays coaching staff was offering, looking at the team's official site, the write-up for Alek Manoah's start today, is that he feels like he's behind stuff-wise, like he wasn't quite ready to go at the start of the season, and he's trying too hard to compensate for it. That's the Blue Jays team excuse. And they're saying, all the positive things you'd want to hear, like they think he's going to be fine. They think it's just a short-term issue. And, we heard the Brewers saying something similar for Corbin Burns, and then he turned things around very quickly. So my hope is the same thing happens to Alek Manoah. I wouldn't blame anybody for sitting him right now until we see that first good start. I'm about to that point myself with him, but we're nowhere close to dropping Alek Manoah.
No, I don't. I think we have to get to. I know, Scott. Usually the cutoff is like Memorial Day. If we're 2 months in and Alek Manoah has an ERA over 5, then.
But
it depends what way he's trending.
Yeah, it's so tough because I like Luis Castillo. I think 2 years ago was in a very similar spot where he was awful for the first month and a half, 2 months of the season, and then was mostly fine. So it's tough when there isn't an actionable explanation. There isn't like a thing with Alek Manoah that I can say, well, if he starts throwing this pitch, that's what's so tough about it. And that's what it was with, Luis Castillo a couple years ago, where it was like everything mostly looks fine. Like it was kind of everything was a little off, but it wasn't so off that it was easy to pinpoint the turnaround,
Mm-hmm. You guys already mentioned the walks with Alek Manoah. Something that stood out to me, he's always been a fly ball pitcher. His home run to fly ball ratio so far is 14.8%. And in his career, he's done a good job of limiting home runs despite being a fly ball pitcher. So for his career, that number is 8.7%. Yeah. So we're talking about it's nearly double. So he's walking guys and he's giving up more home runs.
He's getting hit harder.
Base, so
yeah, it probably all relates to location. Just he's not.
Just has to pitch better.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. At the Yankees this week, so you guys said you're most likely to bench him, and I think that's fair right now with Alek Manoah. Go out and try and buy low if you have faith that he'll get it back on track. Wanted to give a shout out to 2 pitchers that have actually done well this year and have actually been consistent. You can't say that for many pitchers, but Garrett Cole threw a 2-hit shutout with 10 strikeouts on Sunday against the Twins, 18 swinging strikes. He is 4-0 with a .95 ERA, .74 whip, 32 strikeouts over 28 and a third. And the other one is Luis Castillo. Fantastic on Sunday against the Rockies, 7 shutout, 2 hits allowed, 0 walks, 9 strikeouts, 19 swinging strikes, .73 ERA, .61 whip, 26 strikeouts over 24 and 2/3. 2 pitchers actually helping us, Garrett Cole and Luis Castillo. You love to see it. Let's talk about some waiver wire pitchers, and I got a group here that are all over 50% rostered, so perhaps in some shallower leagues. Garrett Whitlock, awesome in his second start on Sunday against the Angels. 7 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts in that one. 61% rostered at the Brewers this week. Taijuan Walker turned in his first quality start at the Reds this weekend. 6 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts for him. He's at the White Sox later this week. Trevor Rogers turned in his first quality start up against the D-backs. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts there, and he's up against the Giants this week. Mike Clevenger, kind of tough to figure out so far. I mean, he's become just a 2-pitch pitcher, and his swinging strike rate is not good. His walks are up, so I don't think I really buy it at all. But he only allowed 1 hit, and he had 5 strikeouts against Baltimore. He is 68% rostered. Chris, how would you rank this group? Whitlock, Taijuan Walker, Trevor Rogers, Mike Clevenger.
I think I would go Rogers, Whitlock. Then there's a gap, and I think I'd probably go Walker over Clevenger. I haven't found Mike Clevenger to be particularly impressive in the early going. Not that Taijuan Walker is ever particularly impressive, but feels a little safer for me. But I think Rogers and Whitlock have a clear edge on the other two in upside alone.
And Garrett Whitlock is SPARP eligible. So
Yes.
if you play in a points league and you're looking to get that little cheat code relief pitcher, that is Garrett Whitlock. How about waiver wire pitchers part 2? Eric Lauer turned in his first quality start of the season at the Padres this weekend. 6 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts for him. Yusei Kikuchi bounced back in a big way up against Tampa Bay. 6 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts for him. His 9 strikeouts, most in a start since July of 2021 for Kikuchi. Carlos Carrasco bounced back at the Oakland A's, 5 innings, 2 runs, 3 strikeouts for him. And Jamison Tyone had his best start of the season so far with the Cubs. He was at the Dodgers, 5 shutout with 7 strikeouts in that one. Scott, you get this group: Eric Lauer, Kikuchi, Carrasco, Tyone. How would you rank them? And are you taking Oviedo over all of them?
Oh yeah, I'm taking Oviedo over these guys, and I'm taking him over the previous group too. I'm not. I'm not that excited about anyone from the Whitlock, Walker, Rogers, Clevenger group. But getting back to the group you gave me here, I would rank them Kikuchi, Tyone, I guess Lauer, and then Carrasco, though Lauer and Carrasco are basically just streamer types in my mind. Yeah, Kikuchi, I might take a flyer on Kikuchi over the previous group too, because he's had 2 good starts and 1 terrible start. And what the 2 good starts have had in common is that he really faded his fastball in those 2 starts. In this most recent start, Saturday, he threw the fastball just 35% of the time, leaned a lot more on the slider and changeup. And by the way, the velocity is up on all 3 of those pitches. So Kikuchi's throwing a lot harder this year on top of everything else. The start where he struggled, he used his fastball more like 50% of the time. And so that the formula to success for him might be as simple as that. It's just the fastball gets crushed. Stop throwing it so much. You have pretty good secondary stuff. And
the problem is it's a lot harder to command the secondary stuff. And if you can't throw strikes with them, things are going to go off the rails pretty quickly, which I would imagine is how things tend to go wrong for Yusei Kikuchi when they do go wrong, because they tend to go spectacularly wrong.
They do.
For him.
And I don't want Kikuchi as much as Oviedo. I did not put in a bid for Kikuchi in every league where he was available like I did Oviedo, but I do think he's more interesting than most of the pitchers we're talking about here.
He is SPARP eligible, right?
Kikuchi is, yeah.
Just
that
like
is,
Oviedo.
I think the
feed those cats, Chris.
That is the preferred place that I would want Yusei Kikuchi. I think he's the kind of guy that I really can't quit him, and I need to steel myself against it. And so I don't really want him in a roto league, especially even a deeper one, just because he has the ability to just ruin your ratios just single-handedly with a couple of bad starts. So I try to avoid him in any kind of season-long context.
All right, so points leagues it is for Yusei Kikuchi. This next group includes Wade Miley. Awesome start Sunday. And honestly, he's been really good all season long too. So I guess shout out to him. He's in that same group as Garrett Cole and Luis Castillo. 7 shutout with 8 strikeouts for Wade Miley. He's 34% rostered. Domingo Germán put up a career high 11 strikeouts against the Twins on Saturday. But a very suspicious outing. If those who checked in or watched or were following it on Twitter, Domingo Germán's hands were checked for quite some time by the umpires in that game. And he was given some kind of warning going into the dugout, after the inning was over.
The ump clearly said you have to wash your hands.
Yes.
Which I've never seen an umpire say.
Domingo Germán came back out, and they had another really long conversation, and then they just let him pitch. So it was very weird, and Rocco Baldelli wound up getting ejected. I don't blame him. It was just a very weird situation. 35% rostered is Domingo Germán. Roansy Contreras, we kind of know the deal. He's been up and down so far. I don't want to completely write him off. He's still young enough where he could figure it out, but he looked good in this one. Turned in his first quality start at the Cardinals. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts for him. Chris, what do you think of this group?
It's just the velo's down with Contreras. And that's kind of my issue with Trevor Rogers too, even though he finally had a good start. Both of their velocities are down more than a mile per hour on average.
Yeah.
Not showing any improvement.
The thing with Rogers is he is throwing that sinker, the new sinker that is generating a lot of ground balls. So I think that's a good change for him. His slider remains a work in progress. Contreras, I wanted to believe in coming into the season. I've pretty much given up. I've pretty much dropped him everywhere, and this start doesn't really change that for me. I mean, Wade Miley, like we saw in 2021, he had a 3.37 ERA and 163 innings. He's not going to get you many strikeouts. It's going to be hard to buy in, but he generates a lot of weak contact. And that is one thing that he truly is a standout. It's 25% right now, which is not sustainable, but he's been in 2021, he was a 34% hard hit rate. That's really, really good. So he can, have that Martin Perez, Merrill Kelly type of season, and it shouldn't shock any of us. It's not someone you're going to run out and add at any point, but it wouldn't surprise me if in 3 weeks he's up to like 75% rostered and he's just a useful pitcher all season.
All right. That is Wade Miley.
I definitely want to keep an eye on Domingo Germán and see what happens if there isn't so much drama with whatever's going on with his hands. Because his swinging strike rate for the year now is 17.1. That's ridiculous. And he had the 18 whiffs on 78 pitches in this start. So like if that continues, well, 17.1 is not going to continue. But if something over 13 can continue, then Domingo Germán might be a pretty nice pickup.
In deeper leagues, got a few names that stood out this weekend. Ryan Nelson, Braxton Garrett, Michael Grove, JP Sears. We're talking, 15 teamers, anything deeper than 12, honestly. I picked up Ryan Nelson in my main event league for like 53 out of 1,000. There's just not much pitching to go around there. So he's looked okay these past 2 starts. Anything on this group? Nelson, Garrett, Grove, and Sears.
Yeah, the most interesting is probably Nelson, just because we've seen him fail the least. He did throw a lot more cutters in this start, which might help him to induce more weak contact. It seems like with Nelson, unlike Dre Jameson and unlike we hope Brandon Pfaadt will be, like Nelson's not going to be able to rely on strikeouts as much. So it's a trickier profile in fantasy always, but if you can find a way to generate weak contact, you can get around that.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take our second break here. And when we return, we'll hit some news and notes. I've got some waiver wire hitters I want to hit later on as well. We'll do that right after this.
Golf's biggest stars descend on Oak Hill for one unforgettable major. The PGA Championship coming in May to CBS.
Welcome back, and let's talk about some news and notes. Brandon Woodruff has been diagnosed with a subscapular strain in his right shoulder. The good news is that he won't require surgery. The bad news is that he's going to miss more than 15 days. Have you guys seen a timetable? Because I could not find anything on Woodruff.
No, I saw just, random people researching how long this injury takes to heal, and they were coming up with figures ranging from 6 weeks to 2 months. I think 6 weeks is a good default expectation when you don't know anything more. You just know it's not going to be a minimal stint. So that's kind of what I'm thinking with Woodruff, 6 to 8 weeks, but it's, that's not official. That's just how I'm operating when forced to operate with not enough information.
Gosh, my NL only labor team, I've got Brandon Woodruff and I had Rhys Hoskins. So it's not really off to a great start. Jeffrey Springs is expected to miss a minimum of 2 months with nerve discomfort in his left arm. Yanni Chirinos was recalled. And does that mean Taj Bradley gets another look? Chris, what do you think?
I would expect so. Yeah. I mean, they haven't said anything one way or the other, but that seems likely given that they're already down 3 starting pitchers. And, Zach Eflin and Tyler Glasnow are probably still a couple of weeks away. So I would assume I'm operating under the assumption that Taj Bradley will get an opportunity within the next turn of the rotation.
And I think there's a chance that Taj Bradley could stick around even once everyone's healthy, not including Jeffrey Springs, because the Rays are using this combination of like Jalen Beeks and usually an opener or Josh Fleming to follow him rather. And so I think if Taj Bradley pitches well, he could just take that spot in the rotation, even with Eflin, even with Glasnow back, because then they'd have Rasmussen and McClanahan as well. And that gives you 5 pitchers. So if Taj Bradley gets recalled and he pitches well, I think he could stick around. I think there's a really good chance of that. The leagues where Fab ran already for me, Taj Bradley went for 135 in one, 356 in another. So Those were 15-team leagues. I wanted to see how much he went for my Tout Wars league. He went for 178. So that's a 12-team head-to-head points league. So
I'm putting Oviedo over him too. Maybe that's a bridge too far for you guys. But look, we just saw Oviedo go 7 innings. I don't know how often Taj Bradley. I always want to say Taj Gibson. Taj Bradley.
Now we're talking. Former Knicks great.
Yeah.
I don't know if you realized, Scott, but when you said that you would take Oviedo over Taj Bradley, I hit you with the Sopranos. Oh!
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
We were talking.
I wish that was something that took off culturally. That's one of my favorite.
Yeah. Maybe
the way they use O is like kind of admonishing, like halfway admonishing, halfway like surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we make it a segment here on the podcast. Max Scherzer had his next start pushed back to Wednesday due to right side / back tightness. Do you start this week at the Dodgers?
I don't love that, but yeah, I'm going to keep him in my lineup where I've got him.
Yeah, especially because that's stuff that he's dealt with in the past as well. So, not great. Jordan Romano was struck in the ribs by a line drive on Saturday. X-rays came back negative. Justin Verlander threw a successful bullpen session on Saturday. It was his first time throwing off a mound since suffering that muscle strain in his shoulder. Carlos Rodon will throw a 2-inning bullpen session. It was either Sunday or it's going to be Monday. So I didn't really see it. Maybe it already happened, but there's just so much going on. I didn't get to check up on that. He could progress to facing live hitters soon after. Joe Musgrove made another rehab start at Single A on Sunday. As long as there were no setbacks, he should be cleared to join the Padres rotation later this week. Let's say we get confirmation on Monday that Musgrove will start next weekend. Are you guys just throwing him back in the lineup?
I'd be fine waiting. If the matchup's good, I don't know what the matchup is off the top of my head. I think it's fine, but
it is Arizona.
When there's that much time, there's always an opportunity for something to go wrong, and I think you can just let it go another week.
Mm-hmm. Robbie Ray will be reevaluated Monday, after which a throwing program could be mapped out. He's on the IL with a grade 1 flexor strain. Michael Harris has yet to be cleared to take live batting practice as of Saturday, and he's on the IL with that lower back strain. Tim Anderson is trending towards a late April return. He's on the IL with a sprained left knee. Phillies manager Rob Thompson said Bryce Harper may not need a rehab assignment in the minors. Perhaps this pushes Harper's timetable up a tad, but it still kind of seems like late May, early June is the earliest we'll see Harper back. Ahmed Rosario is day-to-day with a back issue. Dre Jameson may make multiple starts as a fill-in for Zach Davies, whose oblique strain is expected to take several weeks to heal. Madison Bumgarner will remain in the D-backs rotation and is scheduled to start Wednesday against the Cardinals. He's made 3 rough starts to open the season, and Brandon Pfaadt is lined up with Bumgarner and has looked better over his past couple starts. And Scott, I know Brandon Pfaadt ranks very highly in your prospects to stash as well.
Yeah, he might be number 1 next week because this past week, Brett Baty and Vaughn Grissom were the top 2. No reason to call them prospect stashes anymore. Of course, Grissom not technically a prospect anymore.
Yeah. Max Kepler was activated by the Twins on Saturday. Matt Wallner was optioned to AAA. Joey Gallo appears likely to be activated on Wednesday. Again, not really sure what this is going to mean for Edward Julian yet. Brian Bayo is expected to make his season debut Monday against the Angels. Chris, any interest? 30% rostered is Brian Bayo.
Yeah, he's rostered in most of the deeper leagues where I would be interested in him. But yeah, he's an interesting pitcher. His FIP last year was actually pretty good. It was in like the low 3 range. His ERA was like 4.7. But he's shown some really good things at AAA. So yeah, I'm interested to see what Brian Bayo looks like.
And he is making that start early on Monday, so keep that in mind.
Oh yeah, 11 a.m. start lineup lock.
Yep, 11 a.m.
Oh man,
Shohei Ohtani going up against Brian Bayo. So wake up bright and early.
This week always screws me up because I don't wake up that early.
Yeah, I don't usually either.
So it's like waivers. Like I'm gonna have to stay up until after waivers run just to set my lineups.
That makes 3 of us because I'm not waking up early. Michael Conforto has missed 3 straight due to left calf tightness, but is hopeful he'll return on Monday. Will Smith, was which will the catcher for the Dodgers has missed 3 straight with an undisclosed illness.
It's a concussion. He was placed on the 7-day concussion IL on Sunday. Yeah.
All right, so make sure to avoid him. John Gray was removed from his start Saturday after getting hit in the forearm by a line drive. He told reporters that he does not expect to miss his next start. Other players who went to the IL this weekend, Giancarlo Stanton with a strained hamstring. And just the manner in which it happened is that he hit the ball so hard, everyone thought it was a home run, including him. And then he realized, oh, crap, it's not a home run. He had to start running, and he pulled his hamstring that way. It's just like, oh, yeah, it's never ends. Yohan Moncada with lower back soreness, he was sent to the IL retroactive to April 11th. Jake Berger hit a home run in 3 straight this weekend. He's only 5% rostered. Any interest in Jake Berger in deeper league, Scott?
Well, he's filling in for Yohan Moncada, and it doesn't sound like Moncada is going to be out long. So that's really the main issue there. Berger's always made high quality contact, and I'd like to see him get a more consistent opportunity. But if you're looking for a third baseman off the waiver wire right now, JD Davis is the way to go.
Yeah,
not Jake Berger.
Well, it's Brett Baty way at the top, but yes, I mean he's probably not available in most leagues. But after
what's Davis at right now? So Davis is only 27% rostered, so he's probably out there for you.
And he's doing some good things. He
started 9 of 10 for the Giants. He's having the 2021 season, or what year was it? I guess it was the 2020 season that I was so high on JD Davis, and it didn't work out. He's doing it for the Giants.
There you go. Connor Overton with a right elbow strain. Luke Weaver is set to join the Reds rotation. G-Man Choi went to the IL with a left Achilles strain, retroactive to April 20th. Jock Peterson with right wrist inflammation. Matt Baty and Darren Ruff look like they'll share DH duties in the meantime for the Giants. And Ryan Tepera with right shoulder inflammation. I do want to mention, like, Joe Adell is off to an insane start in the minors this year. I mean, he's hitting home runs.
They got to trade him.
Yeah, I wish they would. I was talking to the Welsh about it too. He said the same exact thing. He's like, just trade him away. Let him.
He's a disaster on defense, and they have Shohei Ohtani.
Well,
trade him.
He's more than a disaster on defense. I think he's just a quadruple A player because he
might be.
He swings and misses too much on pitches in the zone. That's really the deal break. That's been the deal breaker in the major so far. And I don't know that that's changed, even though he's hitting a lot of home runs at AAA.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fair, but I'd like to see him get a real opportunity, and it's just not going to happen with the way the Angels organization is set up right now.
One news item that you wasn't in here, Frank. Max Fried is supposed to be activated Monday for a 2-start week, so you'll want to get him in your lineup right away.
Very nice. I wanted to ask you about a prospect, Scott. Everyone is raving about him on Twitter right now. Mason Miller, a starting pitcher with the Oakland A's, 19 strikeouts in 8 2/3 innings in the minors this season, and I think his latest was like 5 innings with like double strikeouts, like
11 strikeouts, no hits.
And he had, I think it was 23 pitches over 100 miles per hour. So there's a lot of hype with this guy right now. Scott, is there any chance Mason Miller gets into the top 5 prospects to stash?
I'll have to look into him more because he has 28 2/3 professional innings. So it's, he wasn't high on the radar for me coming into the season, but yeah, the strikeout numbers have been ridiculous so far. And it's not like the A's couldn't use another pitcher. And Mason Miller's already 24. So how long would they keep him in the minors,
This season is the first time he's faced more than 10 batters in a game as a professional. So
to be fully honest, I didn't even know who he was before like Saturday when everyone was freaking out. So.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
average 99.6 miles per hour with his fastball last year at AAA.
Oakland can use him too. I mean, it's not like they've got great pitchers that are.
It's not like they're trying to win games either.
That's true. I think they walked the Mets 17 times on Friday night. It was absolute disaster.
The run differential, they are such an outlier for negative run differential. The Rays are just as much for positive run differential. It's like they're both 60 something and the next closest team is 20 something. And whether you're talking positive or negative. Yeah, bad start for the A's.
So bad. All right, we got like 5-10 minutes left, so I'm gonna hit some waiver wire hitters here, and then we'll probably wrap up with some streamers. But the names that stood out to me this weekend, just check to see if they're available. Jorge Mateo, this guy's red hot right now. 3 for 4 with a sock and a shoe on Saturday. He picked up 2 more hits and another steal on Sunday. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm going to have to maybe sing a different tune here on Jorge Mateo because I was pretty dismissive of it, but the strikeout rate is remaining much improved, still below 20%. The exit velocities have been fantastic. He hit 3 just Saturday, between Saturday and Sunday. Jorge Mateo hit 3 balls more than 111 miles per hour. He has 8 steals already, as you pointed out, I think, Frank. And
if you watch him, I'm not a swing guy. There are people who like make that part of their analysis, and I'm not that guy. I'm not trained in it, but just watching him, like, he looks a lot more well balanced when he's swinging. If you watch, look at like any home runs he hit last season, it kind of looks like he's falling out over the plate. And this year he's got a more subdued leg kick. He's got kind of a little double tap, but he's like staying more upright, and he looks at least a little bit more in control. I'm just looking at, reasons why what Jorge Mateo's doing might be for real. And that's the thing that stood out to me, is just that there seems to be a little more quiet as a hitter.
Mm-hmm. He's 82% rostered. So that's why I said, just check to see. I mean, he's likely not available in your league, but in shallower head-to-head points leagues, or even, 10 or 12 team category leagues, Mateo could be out there. I like to create these scenarios in my head too. Like, the Orioles have all these prospects coming. There's probably some level of motivation there, right? Like, this guy doesn't want to lose his job. He wants to play as long as he possibly can. And the Orioles have a lot of names coming. So that wouldn't surprise me if a little extra motivation there for him. Rowdy Tellez had a double dong on Friday, and he's picking it up after a slow start, 75% rostered. And I know he's one of your top sleeper hitters this week, Scott. So check to see.
Numero uno.
Yeah, my man, Rowdy Tellez, if he's out there. For those in 12-team leagues or deeper, Miles Straw, 5 more hits with another steal this weekend, now up to 7 steals. Will Myers went 4 for 5 with a double dong on Saturday. He added a stolen base on Friday as well. He's got 7 games this week, 3 at home, 4 at the Pirates, so some nice matchups there. Shea Langoliers had a big game on Friday, 3 for 5 with his 3rd home run, 2 runs, 2 RBI. He now has catcher eligibility, 26% rostered. Probably rostered in 2 catcher leagues already, but maybe you lost Will Smith. You need a catcher. Shea Langoliers is out there. And JD Davis, who we spoke about, back-to-back multi-hit games, a home run in each of Saturday and Sunday's games, and he's only 27% rostered. Scott, any thoughts on this group? Maybe, what size leagues they should be added in? Straw, Myers, Shea Langoliers, JD Davis.
I think just straight up, JD Davis is the one I'm most excited about because he's getting the playing time in San Francisco, because I thought he had considerable talent in the past, and the Giants have done so well with retreads before that, there may always position him for JD Davis. Do we have a launch angle for him? I don't know, but clearly he's getting the results that I wanted to see from him. And what was that?
No, I'll look up the launch angle for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, clearly he's getting the results I wanted to see from him. It's actually nothing special. It's actually better the past 2 years, but whatever. He's producing. He's at a weak position. He's in a good situation with the Giants. And I think he's worth adding anywhere you need a hitter of any kind. I'm definitely curious about Straw as well. Of course, mostly just a steal specialist, not going to be any power there. But he has maintained a batting average over 300 going back to the start of spring training. And I know he talked about some changes he made with the Guardians coaching staff. Didn't go into a lot of specifics, but it was, hitting was something he put a lot of focus on this offseason. 2 years ago, he was a 270 hitter. So if he can do that again, then he'll probably be worth starting in 5 outfielder roto leagues.
Okay. In deeper leagues, Chris, some names that stood out to me this weekend. Jeimer Candelario had a big game on Sunday, 4 for 5 with his 3rd home run. He's got 9 hits over his last 4 games and is only 14% rostered. Your boy, Luis Garcia, I know we've tried for a couple of years now to make it happen. 5 hits, 2 home runs this weekend for him. Will Brennan has started 7 straight for the Guardians. He's got 8 hits, 7 RBI, and a stolen base during that time as well. 7% rostered. For Brennan. The problem for the Nats is they only have 5 games.
Yeah, only 5 games this week.
I don't love that, but I don't know. Any kind of long-term potential in deeper leagues here, Chris?
I want to believe in Luis Garcia. The league as a whole has a 946 OPS when swinging at the first pitch. Luis Garcia, when putting the first pitch in play, Luis Garcia has put the first pitch in play 9 times. Would you like to know what his OPS is on those 9 plate appearances where he's put the ball in play on the first pitch? Remember, league average, 946 OPS. Typically, very good things happen when you swing at the first pitch.
646.
That is 646 points of OPS too high for Luis Garcia when he puts the ball in play on the first pitch. I don't know what to do with that information. I just thought it was remarkable.
All right. I wanted to bring up the Pirates because their matchups were pretty interesting for me this week. They've got 7 games this week, 3 in cores. Andrew McCutchen, 26% rostered. Carlos Santana, 23% rostered. Rodolfo Castro, if you lost a shortstop recently in a deeper league, he's 10% rostered. He's got second, third, and shortstop eligibility. Scott, I noticed that the Pirates were not in your best hitter matchups this week.
Nope.
Are they facing tough pitchers or what's going on there?
Well, yeah, they do open the week in Colorado, so that's good. But then they get Ashcraft, Hunter Green, and Nick Lodolo in the Red Series to end the week. So middle of the road matchups, I would say.
All right. Those games in Cincinnati, I think they are, right?
I don't have that information pulled up, but they are not. They're in Pittsburgh.
All right. Well, yeah, that probably does lean it closer to the middle of the pack. But hey, games in Coors Field, can't argue with that. Let's see. Where else did I want it to go? Oh, my gosh. I had so much stuff on here that we are not even going to talk about whatsoever. I guess we'll just wrap up with some bullpen things. And the latest here, the Minnesota Twins, Yohan Duran, he just kind of looks like the guy for now. He got his 4th save over the weekend. For the White Sox, Ronaldo Lopez on Friday, he entered the 7th inning with a 3-run lead, 2 runners on. He gave up a single, a walk, and then a bases clearing double to Adley Rutschman. I still think he's their best option, but he's kind of been hit or miss for them so far. For the Cardinals, Ryan Helsley pitched Tuesday and Wednesday this past week, and so they gave him Thursday and Friday off. Giovanni Gallegos picked up his first save. Paul Sewald picked up 2 saves this weekend. For the Tigers on Saturday with the game tied, Trey Wingenter pitched the 8th, Alex Lang in the 9th, Jason Foley in the 10th, and Chasen Shreve in the 11th. Alex Lang, his last 3 or 4 outings, has looked really good, so I kind of think he's going to get the next couple of save opportunities for them, or at least he should if they're trying to win games. For the Mets on Saturday, 1-run lead, Adam Ottavino was used in the 8th, David Robertson was used in the 9th, picked up his 3rd save. For the D-backs, Scott McGough entered on Saturday in the 7th inning with a 1-run lead. They quickly had a 1-run deficit. He gave up 2 runs in that one. The Diamondbacks are probably the hardest to figure out right now. It's probably Chafin, right? Like that's what it is.
Let's just not.
Yeah, I guess.
I think the problem is it's not a good team and they're all bad pitchers.
Yeah. I think for the most part, when I do this, I'm talking about like 15-team roto leagues if you're chasing saves, but if you play a 12-team league,
I feel like anyone you're trying to chase within the Diamondbacks is probably going to hurt you more than they help you.
I think Chafin's the guy to have. I'd rather have Chafin than like Reynaldo Lopez at this point, I think.
Okay. What about the Cubs? This was interesting. On Saturday, Michael Fulmer pitched in a 9th inning with a 1-run lead, and he actually gave up 2 runs and took the loss in that one. Then on Sunday, Fulmer was used in the 8th inning in a 1-run game, and Brad Boxberger got the save opportunity. He struck out 3 for his first save. Scott, do you think maybe Boxberger just kind of works his way in more moving forward?
I mean, they said going in, it was basically between Fulmer and Boxberger. I think Fulmer's in more of the high leverage role where he'll probably get the majority of the save chances, but might work the 8th inning sometimes. I mean, kind of like we saw with David Robertson for the Mets last week. Remember, he worked the 7th inning at a game, and Ottavino got his first save, but then they were right back this weekend going Robertson in the 9th inning. And I think that's just, unless you have an obvious closer type, that's just the way more and more teams are handling it.
Mm-hmm. Brad Boxberger, 11% rostered for those who play in deeper leagues and are chasing saves. Got to mention the Royals on Sunday. Aroldis Chapman pitched in the 8th inning with the game tied. He struck out 3. Scott Barlow got the 9th, but the game still tied at the time. He gave up a run and took the loss. I think we're one step closer to getting Aroldis Chapman in that role, and I know that's the way that you guys were leaning last week as well. To stream or not to stream, we'll start with Monday. Brian Bayo, bright and early, up against the Angels.
Nope.
All right. Hunter Gaddis at the Tigers.
Nope.
I don't know if this has actually been confirmed, but Matthew Boyd was supposed to pitch on Sunday. He now pitches, probably will pitch Monday against the Guardians.
Yeah, that's what I've seen, but I don't think it's been confirmed either. I could maybe do that. I'm looking ahead at who else you have here, and that Boyd's probably going to be my first choice for Monday to stream, but it's not with a lot of enthusiasm because he's been okay, but he hasn't really been working deep into starts.
Mm-hmm. What about Kyle Freeland versus the Pirates? That game is in Coors Field.
No, I don't care what Freeland's done so far. No.
Hayden Wesneski at the A's.
No, even against the A's, his whip is like 2.3 right now.
Gosh, spring training was such a long time ago. Kyle Muller versus the Cubs.
No.
Chris Flexen versus the Brewers.
No.
Ryan Weathers versus the Braves.
Nope.
David Peterson at the Dodgers.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Wesneski's probably my second choice from this group after Boyd. It's just, it's not a good group.
No.
I don't like, I would prefer not to use Boyd or Wesneski.
Yeah.
And looking at Tuesday, it doesn't get that much better. Eduardo Rodriguez versus the Guardians.
That's okay.
Yeah, I probably like that better than any of the other ones.
Peyton Battenfield at the Tigers.
Nah.
Too risky.
Edward Cabrera versus the Giants.
Like him more than any of the Monday ones.
But I'm still going to say no.
Jose Suarez at the Yankees.
Nope.
No.
Clark Schmidt versus the Angels.
No.
Josiah Gray versus the Orioles.
I don't think so.
Dean Kramer at the Nationals.
Nope.
Bailey Falter at the White Sox.
I don't think so.
Ray Jameson at the Cardinals.
I'd be more likely to do him than I think anyone else between Monday and Tuesday because I think he's pretty good. But will he go more than 4 innings? Hopefully. And it is the Cardinals lineup, which is dangerous. So it's not a good couple days for streaming pitchers. Clearly,
not so dangerous when they're facing Johan Oviedo. I'll tell you that, Scott. Ken Waldichuk versus the Cubs.
No way.
And Tyler McGill at the Dodgers.
No.
All right, we're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. We'll be back again tomorrow. And I swear we're going to get to Team Name Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Maybe.